Hey guys, what's going on? This is Tom here, and today I'm going to be going over some of the USMLE Step 2 OB-GYN material. These are universally topics that my students hate covering initially, and then I can provide them with a simplistic approach so that they can get these questions right routinely on exams. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive in. So go ahead and read this vignette and pause the screen if you need to. All right, so here we are asking about diagnosis first, and then we're asking about karyotype and inheritance pattern. We have a 17-year-old female coming in, absence or reverse menstrual period, and she's looking at her phone, vitals are normal, but she has absent uterus. So the second you see absent uterus, there's two differentials that should automatically go into your mind. One is going to be Mullerian agenesis, and the other is going to be androgen sensitivity syndrome, right? Those are the two that will not have a uterus, all right? Now, she also has these bilateral inguinal masses. I don't typically use this to try and figure this out, but what they're alluding to is testes, all right? Now, I don't typically use that as like the key thing to help me distinguish between these diseases, but it helps support what I'm thinking, all right? But minimal axillary and pubic hair, right? So if there is minimal axillary and pubic hair, I want you to think about androgen sensitivity syndrome. And you can use the name to try and figure this out. Androgen insensitivity syndrome. We're going to produce androgens, but we're just not going to respond to those androgens. For that reason, if we don't have androgens, we can't produce our axillary and pubic hair. Makes sense. Now, what is the most likely karyotype here? So we know androgen sensitivity syndrome is what's going on, and what's the most likely karyotype? So people with androgen sensitivity syndrome are born genotypically male, right? But they they develop mostly female external genitalia. However, they'll have male internal genitalia because they still produce the anti-Mullerian hormone, right? So I want you to think of androgen sensitivity syndrome as genotypically male. Whereas Mullerian agenesis, the difference is they're female, it's just the Mullerian ducts didn't develop. And so everything else is completely normal. They'll respond to androgens and they'll have normal axillary and pubic hair. And they wouldn't have the inguinal masses because they're not males either, right? So what's the inheritance pattern here? So this is something I kind of just had to memorize. It is a X-linked recessive defect in the androgen receptor. And I would recommend knowing these things. These are probably a little more nuanced in terms of details. However, I have seen questions on them before, so I think it is worth knowing. So let's review androgen sensitivity syndrome. It's X-linked recessive mutation in the androgen receptor. These are born phenotypically male, and they don't respond to the androgens that they produce. They end up losing DHT, and if you don't have DHT, testosterone gets converted to DHT. DHT develops the external genitalia. Okay, so we lose DHT, we're not going to develop the male external genitalia, which is why their genitalia appear female. All right. They're also going to have male internal genitalia for that reason I was saying earlier, because they're going to have anti-Mullerian hormone negating the development of the uterus, the cervix, and the upper vagina. All right. How is this going to look? So this is going to be born looking like a female. They're going to be born looking like a female. They reach puberty, and then they're not going to be menstruating. They're going to look female, but they will have testes and the bilateral inguinal masses, and they will also have breasts because the testosterone is getting aromatized estrogen, right? So that's why they end up having breast development. So that's androgen sensitivity syndrome. Look for uterus or no uterus, and then look at hair versus no hair. If there's no uterus and no hair, androgen sensitivity syndrome. All right, so we know what you think of this one is. Go ahead and pause if you need to. So here we're asking most likely cause of this person's development. This is a 16-year-old female, again, not having her first menstrual period. And on physical exam, she has normal breast development. Again, not too helpful for figuring these out. but she has normal pubic hair, all right? And she has a non-palpable uterus. So non-palpable uterus tells us androgen sensitivity, Mullerian agenesis, and then now there is pubic hair, so that tells us this is Mullerian agenesis. And remember, Mullerian agenesis, stereotypically, these are going to be females. So they are born XX. And the only problem is the Mullerian ducts just didn't develop. They failed to develop. All right. So Mullerian agenesis. This is also called Mayer-Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome. I think I'm saying that right, but again, I might just be butchering it. It is important to know both names because they will use those interchangeably. These are female karyotypes. They have loss of the Mullerian or the paramesonephric ducts, and that leads to an absence of a uterus. Ovaries are still going to be present, and they'll have normal levels of androgens. So the normal level of androgens is the reason why they still have axillary and pubic hair. So everything's going to be normal. They just don't have a uterus. Okay? Presentation-wise, it'll be a female, completely normal development, but then they have amenorrhea. And look for a female, no uterus, and normal axillary and pubic hair development, because that means, hey, there's one isolated problem here. It's just the Mullerian ducts didn't develop. That's pretty much all you need to know about these things. You don't really need to know how to treat them. It's just identifying them and knowing some of the pathophysiology behind them. All right, so moving on, go ahead and read this one. All right, so we're asking most likely diagnosis. We have a 16-year-old female, cystic acne, comes in over concern not having her first menstrual period. Again, common theme here. And she's Tanner stage 2 for breast development. So now we're having less breast development. And she also has ambiguous external genitalia, and her ultrasound shows normal female internal genitalia. So most of the problem that we are having here is we have ambiguous external genitalia. Mom also says that prior to delivering her, she had thick, coarse facial hair herself that went away after delivery. Get labs, and testosterone is elevated, and her estrogen is low. All right, what's the most likely diagnosis? So I kind of made this easy here. And the reason I made it easy is because if I give you the labs, testosterone and estrogen, it's really simple to figure this out. So what enzyme converts testosterone to estrogen? Well, it's going to be aromatase, all right? Aromatase. So here, estrogen is low, testosterone is elevated, and that's why she's developing signs of excess androgenism. So what is the karyotype of these people? So people with aromatase deficiency, they are phenotypically female, right? However, they get to puberty and they start producing their androgens. This entire, HPG axis gets accelerated, and then because they can't produce estrogen, their body is only producing testosterone. Then the body's like, we need estrogen. And so it keeps ramping up the cycle because it's not producing any androgen and it thinks that it can. However, the enzyme's sufficient, so it's not going to be able to. So think if testosterone's elevated, estrogen's low, think aromatase deficiency. And so with aromatase deficiency, it can happen in both male and female patients. However, it's not that big of a deal for men because for men, it will be early onset puberty or they have excess testosterone, which most men probably won't complain about. It is an autosomal recessive defect. And so the way I remember this is by the name AR aromatase autosomal recessive deficiency. Okay. So if we have lower aromatase, we're going to have increased testosterone, decreased estrogen. The presentation, mom in utero, the mom will develop virilization prior to pregnancy that goes away after she delivers. The child will be born with ambiguous genitalia at birth and normal internal female genitalia. At puberty, she's going to have impaired secondary sex characteristics with amenorrhea, and that's because of the high testosterone, no estrogen, right? She'll also develop virilization because of high testosterone, will have minimal or no breast development. But however, because she's producing testosterone and androgen, she will have axillary and pubic hair development. So diagnostic wise, you're looking for increased testosterone and androstenedione and decreased estrogen. So that's aromatase deficiency, a little more nuanced in approach. However, ambiguous genitalia at birth, normal internal female genitalia, and these patients are generally females that are affected, right? They're generally females that are being affected. So they are females, it's just they develop virilization, ambiguous external genitalia, excess testosterone. All right, so moving on, go ahead and read through this one. So again, RASI most likely diagnosis, 14-year-old female, concerns over growing masses in her abdomen. I had to change it up a little bit on this one. She's Tanner stage 3 with a vagina, and she has bilateral masses lateral to her labia. She has what appears to be like a phallus enlargement near the clitoris, or megaly, and then you do a hormone analysis, and it shows high testosterone, low DHT, normal estrogen. And so what is the diagnosis here? And so again, I kind of made this easy, but if we have hormone levels, testosterone, DHT, if we have high testosterone, low DHT, the enzyme responsible for that conversion is your 5-alpha reductase. And remember, DHT is responsible for developing the male external genitalia. Well, it is responsible for developing male external genitalia, and testosterone is high. And we have a patient who externally appears to be female, but internally she has those masses. So androgen sensitivity had similar masses. This also has masses in the abdomen as well, which are the testes. This is actually genotypically a male who, because they lost DHT, develops female external genitalia. All right. So this is going to be your 5-alpha reductase deficiency. That is the enzyme converting DHT or testosterone to DHT. And I apologize for writing so poorly, but I lost the pen that goes with this laptop, and so I have to use a mouse to write everything. So what is the inheritance pattern for this disorder? And I will tell you now, I use a similar pattern for aromatase and 5-alpha reductase, which is you see this alpha and you see this R. So alpha R autosomal recessive. All right, easiest way for me to do it. Now, generally, I will say this, generally, I tell my students, assume everything is autosomal recessive until proven otherwise and memorize the others. However, when it comes to this entire set of diseases, they can get kind of confusing. So I think having a second backup memory mnemonic is helpful. 5-alpha reductase deficiency, these are genotypically males. Remember, aromatase, genotypically female, 5-alpha reductase, genotypically male, and they develop female external genitalia. It's an autosomal recessive defect, so there's that trick I was showing you, 5-alpha reductase, and you get decreased conversion of testosterone to DHT. If you lose DHT, you can't develop the external genitalia, and the presentation, they're going to be born with female external genitalia. Nobody's going to question it at birth, but they will have male internal genitalia, and the vagina will end in a lined pouch. At puberty, the secondary sex characteristics of a male are going to begin popping up. They're going to have really high levels of testosterone, and that's going to lead to testicular development as well as clitoromegaly. However, they do not have breast development. So 5-alpha reductase or aromatase will be looking for minimal or no breast development. However, they still have normal axillary and pubic hair because the amount of testosterone and androgens that they're producing is adequate to be able to produce those. So diagnostic-wise, look for increased testosterone, low DHT. Okay. One more. You can probably guess by process of elimination, but go ahead and read through this. So here we're asking about enzyme deficiencies, and we have a 10-year-old girl, so a little bit younger than what we have been having. And she has this gradual onset pubic hair growth, deepening of her voice, and irregular menstrual periods over the past year. Not completely abnormal for a 10-year-old to be having menstrual periods. However, it is a little early. She has also been having fatigue and abdominal discomfort. On exam, she has virilization, clitoromegaly, and a male-like pattern of hair growth, and her labs show an increase in her testosterone levels. So here you have a younger girl who's kind of reaching that puberty area. And once she gets here, she's now developing a lot of symptoms of virilization and hyperandrogenism. And so here I want you to think about your non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia. We'll tell you, NBME loves this one. And I think part of it is because they're able to mix in this 21-alpha hydroxylase deficiency with a presentation that's similar to what you're going to see in aromatase, androgen sensitivity, that type of thing. However, these are females, and it's essentially as soon as they hit puberty, the HPG axis starts getting ramped up. They start producing tons of androgens, and that leads to signs of hyperandrogenism, right? And so this is going to be due to a partial 21 hydroxylase deficiency. Now, these are in female. They develop hyperandrogenism, and it also autosomal recessive. Unfortunately, I don't have a great memory mnemonic because the other diseases there were no A's. There was no D for autosomal dominant. Here, you know, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, I can't really fit it in. On 5-alpha reductase deficiency, yes, there's a D in that name, but the A and the R come first, and so that's how I reasoned through that one. I can't really use that trick here. However, also recessive, so just assume, autosomal recessive until proven otherwise, 21 hydroxylase deficiency, and it's a partial deficiency. So this leads to an increase in androgens, but a slight decrease in your corticosteroids and mineral fluids. In contrast to the complete deficiency, which would present at birth with hemodynamic changes, lethargy, fatigue, this is going to present much later in life, generally around when the kids are hitting puberty. So at birth, these kids are going to be normal. And then they get elevated estrogens during childhood. That leads to axillary and pubic hair growth, acne, hirsutism, and changes in their menstrual periods. Your key to diagnosing this, and something they'll kind of put into the vignettes, is which one of these things is most likely to be elevated in this disease. Well, your 17-hydroxyprogesterone is the key lab. That is what is most likely going to be elevated. And there is a treatment that is important to know for this one. It's going to be treat this with corticosteroids. So why treat with corticosteroids? So you might remember this. I can't remember if I got this from first aid or pathoma. I think this is pathoma. But remember that, and actually this might be first aid. Regardless, so we're producing aldosterone down here, cortisol here, and testosterone, estrogen over here. So if we lose our 21-alpha hydroxylase, we are basically going to be shunting everything this way. All right. If we have a partial deficiency, we'll still be able to produce some aldosterone and cortisol, but we'll be shunting everything over to testosterone and estradiol. And our body naturally wants to produce more aldosterone and cortisol, but even though it's trying to ramp up the pathway to try and produce those things, all it's getting out is testosterone and estrogen. So how do you treat this? Well, if you give steroids, hydrocortisone is one they like you to use. If you give hydrocortisone, it will provide negative feedback because now you're going to be giving it what it wants. You're going to be giving it its end product, and so that will shut down this pathway and decrease the amount of androgens through negative feedback. All right, so I think I'm going to stop there, and I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, leave them in the comment box below. If you're interested in tutoring, if you have any general questions, you're free to email me. Email will also be in that comment box below. And otherwise, God bless and good luck studying. I hope this was beneficial for you. Bye.